You're alive.
All right. Good evening, everybody. I'll now call the General Committee meeting to order. Tonight's General Committee meeting is being held virtually with members of General Committee, the Executive Management Team, Deputy City Clerk, and the City Clerk participating via video conference. Members of the Senior Leadership Team who have reports on tonight's agenda are not visible, but are available to answer questions should they arise. We do have a large number of items actually on tonight's General Committee agenda. Some have been through committee, of course, so we will go through the consent agenda now. I'll read out the title associated with the recommended motions printed on the agenda. Members of the General Committee can ask that the item be held for further discussion. If it is not held tonight, motions deemed to be approved on consent, there'd be no further discussion tonight, and it'll go forward to City Council at our next meeting, which is March the 7th for final approval. Reports of reference advisory or special committees. As I mentioned, there's a number of them tonight. First to be received is the report of the Council Compensation Review Committee from January 7th, the report of the Council Compensation Review Committee dated February 4th, and the report of the City Building Committee dated February 8th. Those are all to be received. City Building Committee, and then there is another Council Compensation item a little bit later, so we'll get to that in a moment. First, City Building Committee from February 8th has recommended a number of motions. The first one is the approval of our wastewater asset management plan. Does anyone wish to hold that? Seeing none, it's approved on consent. Next item is with regards to the Municipal Heritage Register for 72 Burton Avenue. No holds, that is approved. We have the Barrie Arts Advisory Committee mandate and strategic priorities. Councillor Thompson? No. Next item is an investigation of potential sponsorship opportunities between the Barrie and District Realtors Association and the Heritage Barrie Committee. Holds. That's approved. We have an item regarding Bike the Night from Active Transportation and Sustainability. Holds. That is approved. Okay, 5.4, the report of the Council Compensation Review Committee dated February 11th is to be received, the minutes of the meeting. And the report of the committee has a motion. Does anyone wish to hold that? Councillor Thompson. Held by Councillor Thompson. Staff reports. The first staff report on the agenda tonight is an investigation to construct professional grade pickleball courts. Held by Councillor McCann. Next item is with regards to no parking at any time on Pepin Court. It's in Ward 10. Want to hold that, Councillor McCann, as well? Okay. The next item is regarding our economic recovery programs for 2022, patios, open air Dunlop, and business in the parks. No holds. That is approved, and I'll just make note that that's a series of programs to assist our hospitality and tourism sectors in the recovery from COVID, and the details are all in the motion, but that's been given approval by General Committee tonight. I'll say something about that next week at Council. We have the Water Operations Branch 2021 Drinking Water System Report. Does anyone wish to hold it? Yes, Councillor Jim Harris. Okay. Finally, we have the 2021 and 2022 Ontario Gas Tax Funding Agreement. No holds on that staff report. It is approved on consent. We have 4 items for discussion placed by members of council on the agenda tonight. The first is an invitation to the Royal Victoria Regional Health Centre to present concerning an update on RVH capital plans. Holds, that is approved. Next, we have an item regarding parking restrictions on Davidson Street. It's put on by Councillor Allen. No holds, it's approved. We have an item regarding a community art project put on by Councillor Kungle. Held by Councillor Thompson. Finally, we have an item regarding the resident mobile app put on by Councillor Thompson. No holds there. That is approved. Okay. We do have a number of items that were held, and we will start moving through them now. The first item that was held by Councillor Thompson. It's with regards to the Barrie Arts Advisory Committee mandate and strategic priorities. A motion from City Building Committee. Go ahead, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to put it on the floor as printed. I actually was scrolling, and it was the other art one that I wanted to hold. I apologize. So I put it on the floor, and sorry to delay the meeting.
Not a problem. Anyone wish to comment on this? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor of the item? Anybody opposed? None? That carries. Councillor Thompson, you also held the next one, which is the report of the Council Compensation Review Committee, the motion that came out with their recommendations. Would you care to put that on the floor or another motion?
Thanks, Mayor Lehman. I'll put it on the floor as printed. It's general committee, so I'll speak to it. I have a little bit of trouble with some of the recommendations, but first I want to say thank you to the committee for all the work and the meetings and going back and forth in the survey and all that and stuff. There's a few items I have issue with. One is the increase in the car allowance. I think at this time we've got to be very careful. There's a lot of our residents who don't have perks like this, and I think we should be representing the people of Barrie in a whole, and the opting into the OMERS, I'm not a big fan of for several reasons. If somebody requires benefits, that a 50-50, which is current, I think is a great option. There's lots of people that don't have an option for benefits through their employer. And, I know it's tough and stuff, but, this is still deemed a part-time job. And I just think that the burden on the taxpayer, as you can see in the report, for let's say a one-time counselor, like a one-term counselor, to opt into a pension is, I don't think it's a great bang for the buck for the burden on the taxpayer. I do agree with the increase in the mayor's salary and an option for the OMERS for that position, as that is a full-time position. And I think to attract quality candidates, the job needs to pay accordingly with perks. Another concern I have is with a 50% increase to the deputy mayor position. I think we've been extremely fortunate for the first deputy mayor of Barrie, somebody who's extremely involved and goes to a lot of events, but the reality is it was an appointed position, and in the next council, if it's appointed and the person doesn't feel that the amount is sufficient for what is required, they can always refuse the appointment. It's not elected, and so that's some of my concerns. I'll wait to hear from my colleagues, but I just think that we've got to be very careful. I asked some questions to staff. They were unable to get some of the answers, and it was short notice, but I just think we've got to watch that the salary with all the increases in that, we're in a province that has told our nurses, like I know a nurse that's, working in research and going through a really hard time. She's going to get a 1% increase. So I just think that we've got to be really careful and mindful of the taxpayer. That's all. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Thompson. Just one question of information that I'll ask of staff. You've raised a number of issues, and there's just one piece of additional information there on the car allowance piece. Could staff just remind council, all of us, what are the current car allowance rates?
Mayor Lehman, the current car allowance rates annually are $2,200 for members of council. So the committee is recommending an increase of $200 a month. The deputy mayor would be 3,300, and the committee is recommending an increase of $300 a month, and the mayor would be just under just around 6,000, and currently, and the committee is recommending a 550 increase per month. It's in paragraph 37 of the staff report.
Yeah. So just to be clear, though, the increases are to an amount of $200 a month.
Yes.
Right. So it would be going from 2,200 currently to 2,400 under the proposed recommendation. So it happens to be an increase of $200, but it's to bring it to an amount of $200 a month as well. I just wanted to clarify that because it's a little confusing with the way the numbers worked out for anybody reading or watching. Okay, I have speakers list. Councilor Morales, you're first.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman, for the comments there. So a little bit of feedback on this one. Actually, after I put up my card, I got a message from a Ward 9 resident. She watches meetings regularly. She's thought of running for council, and she corresponds with me as well about the possibility of representing her community. And the message that, and I won't say her name. The message that she sent me as the comments were made was the argument that part-time means no benefits, referring to OMERS, is gross. And end quote. I think that actually kind of supported what the comments I was going to say regarding this. This is an independent committee that set these recommendations. Great. They always come to council. We rubber stamp them. We change them. But they're not for us. They're for the future leadership of the city, whoever that may be. So I think that's an important quote that we need to understand. Here's something else that goes into my decision making. There's been lots of discussion in the community from city councilors, from others, about increasing representation, more women on council, more diversity on council, etc. I think the kind of thing that you do to attract them, to make them represent your city, is things such as the recommendation that the committee made. While council may be kind of a hybrid part-time, I usually call it three-quarter job. We don't need to create a position with a part-time mentality. We need to create one to attract a full-time vision. And I think if we start slicing and dicing the recommendation, we are fulfilling the prophecy that this job has a part-time vision. I think that people need to be brought forward, and it was a recommendation from specifically from the committee as well. So I had other kind of concerns. I thought the benefits part of it, meaning like the dental, etc. I liked alternative number 1 a little bit better. Basically, you get $1,000, you spend it where you need to spend it, and that's it. And I think the other one actually costs a little bit more, if I'm not mistaken, the one that we're recommending going with. The reason I say that is, again, for those that this is their other job, they already have another plan that it's going to go to first. So it's going to be minimal cost to them. And then the ones that use it a little bit more can kind of have their option in picking and choosing. Also, something I've noticed for council's getting younger and younger and younger every term. So with option 1, there's a lot of services that you're paying for that councilors may not need. And as again, councilors get a little bit younger, it's probably a better value to go with alternative 2. But my main comments were the part about the OMERS specifically. And again, it's interesting that, again, a female, she sits on one of our city committees, by the way, that has thought of running for a while, sent me that comment as I had already put up my placard about us speaking to the item. So I think it was done comprehensively. I'll answer happily to residents and say, this is for the future council. We're not going to see a penny of this. And this is the kind of thing that you need to do to attract specifically leadership, that's a little bit more diverse in nature.
Thanks, Councillor Morales. Next, I have Councillor Kungle.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Lehman. I wanted to express similar compliments to the committee as Councillor Thompson had. I had gone back and reviewed some of the recorded conversations and really appreciated the thoroughness. So I actually am quite comfortable with what's being proposed forward, but knowing that there could be different considerations or impact factors, whether or not we would look at each item in that recommendation on its own motion. Or if we decide to still look at it collectively. I would promote the OMERS and other pieces might be ones to dive deeper into a conversation about, or we might want to get more information if not satisfied with what we've got to date. So would like to see if council would be open to perhaps looking at that motion by element. Separate, oh, yeah.
Sorry, yeah, I think Councillor Kungle, it's fair to say based on the discussion that we could separate one or more of the matters and vote on them separately, potentially refer one or more paragraphs while approving the others if you so chose.
Okay. So I am comfortable, but I do see from a budget impact and from a consideration, OMERS being something quite substantially new around broadening to all of council, that perhaps that's one council might want to have more specific conversation on. I'm comfortable looking at it as a whole, but would respect that. I did want to comment to staff and the committee. I really did appreciate section 5 in this report and the consideration of the communications going in the next municipal election package. We've talked a lot about that. And so I'm very outside of, the figures around funds and whatnot from a compensation. I am very, very pleased to see that we are looking at adding information about time requirements, expectations associated with serving on council, boards and committees that require council representation, and the process for expressing an interest for serving as deputy mayor. I think that is good communication to have in the package. I guess one question, if this is through you, Mayor Lehman, or to see CAO Prowse or the clerk, is there a formalized process, or is the process for serving as deputy mayor really something that falls within the post-election outcome and the mayor starting the new term, or is that actually something we can speak to? I didn't know if that was a formal process or really up to the discretion of the mayor at that time.
So the appointment matter is not on the floor tonight. It's just what the position would be compensated at. So I think you would need a separate item to address anything related to the process around the appointment.
So maybe to further clarify, if it's appropriate to the clerk, so 5C talks about the process for expressing interest as serving as deputy mayor. So I'm going to assume that's high level around that it's a position that's appointed, not elected, but there's no formal application process, just for those watching at the time of running and putting in your nomination of identifying a deputy mayor. Is that correct?
Through you, Mayor Lehman, to Councillor Kungle, you are correct. There is no application process. Generally, at the start of the term, the mayor meets with the council-elect to get their expressed interest on what committees they want to sit on. And during that time, they would probably want to, that would probably be when a council-elect would express their interest in being deputy mayor.
Thank you. So no further questions. If it's the will of council at this time, I'm fine to look at it collectively, but I am sensing that OMERS, because it's quite a significant budget change, might be something to separate out and have further conversation about.
Thanks for that, Councillor Kungle. And yeah, just to get the information out for the benefit of the discussion, I'm sure that number popped out of the staff report for everybody because it's really the only area where there's significant dollars proposed. And it is a roll, as I understand it, and I'd like staff to clarify, maybe they can break it down. That is a roll-up number for the health benefits and pension employer portion of the pension contribution. So as I understood it, there's sort of three components to that. And perhaps Ms. Cook or another member of staff who assisted with the committee could give us the benefit of some sense of how much of that is the proposed health, how much is the proposed other benefits portion of the package, and how much is the employer contribution to OMERS. I've tried to do some of that backwards math myself. It does say earlier in the report for council members because OMERS is a joint contribution, the employee and the employer both pay in the same amount. You know, counselors would have to deduct from their salary their pension contribution, and that amount looks to be about $4,000 according to paragraph 31 of the report. So I'm assuming the employer amount is the same times 10, which gives us like $40,000 out of that 109. So I guess my question, Madam Clerk, is my backwards math right? Are we looking at 40 for the pension and 60 for changes to the benefit package across all 10 individuals?
Through Mayor Lehman, I'm going to refer this question to Brian DeWolf-Smith, the Manager of Compensation and Benefits. He would probably be best to respond to that question.
And I'm, even as I say that, I think I left the mayor and deputy mayor contributions out, so I'm sure it's actually even more than that. Mr. DeWolf-Smith. Oh, we can't hear you yet, Brian.
Okay, sorry, can you hear me now?
There we go. Yep, gotcha.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lehman, call council members. Paragraph 31 of the report indicates the additional cost to the city for OMERS would be just short of 56,000, and the remainder would be the health and dental benefits, assuming that all council members would be enrolled in that benefits plan.
Okay, so it's roughly half. Half is for the employer pension contribution piece, and the other half is for updating the benefits package. Okay, thanks for that. Next, I have Councillor Aylwin. Sorry, Councillor Kungl, was that it? Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Aylwin.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. And I would like it if we could discuss the OMERS piece separately for sure. I think that's a great idea. And I generally agree with the recommendations from the Council Compensation Review Committee. And it's for the same reasons that Councillor Morales indicated. This is about the future leaders of our city and not about us. You know, we're all here because we felt we could make this job work with our current economic circumstances. So we need to put ourselves in the shoes of others who may not think they could make it work economically to work this job, but they may have a passion to. They may be some of our greatest future leaders in the city, and I think we should be providing that opportunity to all who want to serve the city that they love. So I'm supportive of the package as a whole, and we'll be voting in favor of it for those reasons. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Owen. Councillor Natalie Harris.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. Just a question to you or staff with regards to the OMERS. That is a you can opt in or out. Is that correct? Okay. So some people that already have a full-time job and commit and already contribute to OMERS may not want to contribute more. So that's something good for the public to know, that might not even reach that number. But I am in support of it. For me personally, I know a lot of people know, like, I used to be a paramedic, and there's legislation that does provide me with some funds to survive through WSIB. But I think it's important to know that the amount I get from WSIB, everything's deducted. So my salary is my salary, and I don't get extra really because of that. And so it's important to know that we are really, really struggling. This is my source of income as well. And going forward, I agree. This is our future council, and I think it's fair increases, to be honest. And it's I know a part-time job with words, but it's definitely never really felt like a part-time job. I think we are all committed on a lot of different levels, and a lot of us have the opportunity and privilege to have full-time jobs as well, but that's not the case for everyone. So especially with respect to health care, etc., I know that's not really changing, but OMERS for me would be a real big benefit, and going forward, I think that would be another thing that attracts others to run for council as well.
Thanks, Councillor Harris. Councillor Jim Harris.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Lehman, and thank Councillor Thompson for putting it on the floor and to the comments from everybody so far. Yeah, really interesting discussion, and I appreciate the report. I was just curious as it relates to all the elements, because they do add up. I mean, I think it's fair to suggest that it's not insignificant, but it's important. Wondering if for the folks who helped put this together, if they've done the math on, the percentage of benefits of the salary, and often, when you look at employee costs, you have your salary plus, your percentage added on top for benefits and such. So what would the percentage of the benefits type package, pension and such be as it relates to the salary? I don't know if that's through you, Mayor Lehman, to maybe if it's Ms. Cook, I'm not sure who the proper person is.
Ms. Cook?
Mayor Lehman, I would refer to Mr. DeSwole-Smith again.
Mr. DeWolf-Smith.
Through you, Mayor Lehman, to Councillor Harris. I don't have the exact number, and the percentage would be different a little bit different for members of council versus the mayor position, just because the premiums of the benefits would be the same cost. For a full-timer in the city, sometimes we use somewhere around 23 to 25% generally as just an estimate. But again, I haven't done that exact calculation for a member of council, given it's a part-time salary.
Thanks. Is that something that you could have for us for next week? I think it's an important just to see that, as it relates to, we want to have a fair compensation package, but as Councillor Thompson mentioned, we are part of our community, and just curious if the percentage was, and I understand 23, 25 makes sense. I understand that as a good package and a good fair package for full-time employees, but I just like to know that number as a council. So if that could be available for next week, that'd be great. Thank you. I'm just wondering too, I know this is something, I'm just curious more so that if it got wrestled with, we have a population in the city of Barrie, we have 10 wards, but they're not equal. So I was just curious when we looked at trying to get a cost of, compared to other municipalities, we compared, the dollar amount or the with other communities. Did the committee wrestle with, okay, but we have one ward, for example, the largest, that is 50% larger than the smallest ward as far as population. We are here to serve people. So I'm just curious if you wrestle with that at all. I'd love to hear your comments. So through your Mayor Lehman, maybe to Ms. Cook and the committee members.
Ms. Cook?
Through you, Mayor Lehman, to Councillor Jim Harris. The committee's mandate did not include looking at the ward structure. Generally, what happens is they didn't review the compensation related to the, the population of each ward. A ward boundary review would need to be done to equalize the wards, and staff reported back last year that we weren't going to do a ward boundary review until after the next election, as the growth has not occurred that we thought would have occurred before 2022. I hope that's helpful. And
Was your question, Councillor Harris, around the size of wards relative to the compensation?
Yeah, thanks.
Because I'd taken your question a little differently. So
Okay,
for example, in the city of Burlington, they've got 6 councillors. Their wards are about twice as big as the wards in Barrie by population size. Did the committee consider the number of residents that a councillor represents in terms of the relative level of compensation?
not per ward, no.
Okay, the comparison I'm looking for, and maybe I'm missing, I'm not saying it too well. I don't know, Jim, if you had the same question, but if a councillor in one municipality is representing twice as many people as in Barrie, their compensation probably isn't twice as much, but it might well be higher. Was that issue addressed by the committee in providing their recommendations?
No, the committee used the overall city population when they were doing the recommendations.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Marlene. I was just curious. I know that we're looking at salary to population. I was just curious if it was, the awards were similar in size in other communities, and also we know in Barrie, for example, from our largest to our smallest. Now that will change. We know Barrie is growing, and some of the smaller awards today will not be necessarily smaller in the future. But just curious as far as if that group wrestled with that as far as compensation. So I thank you for your answer. I don't have any more on that. Just wondered too, this might be a note of stating the obvious, but it says car allowance. I would assume, and I think some people made good comments about the future members might not have cars. So I assume that's a transportation allowance fairly, as opposed to maybe the language of car needs to be updated. Is that fair, maybe through you, Mayor Lehman, to Ms. Cook and the team?
Ms. Cook?
Through you, Mayor Lehman, to Councillor Jim Harris, we did not actually discuss other modes of transportation as a committee, but that's a fair comment, and we could make an amendment to the expense policy and look at other forms of transportation.
Okay, thank you. And I will say I do support the increase to mayor and the mayor's wage. I was asking for a friend if it's retroactive, just anyway. So thank you for your time and your answers.
Just to be clear, it's not. But thanks, Councillor Harris, for the thought. And just a point of detail maybe there on the car allowance. It's called a car allowance, but you're not required to have a car. It is in fact provided, if your car happens to be Uber's, if it means you take a cab from time to time, or if you have a ride share or whatever that might be, it goes towards your cost of getting around the city while you do your job, I guess would be the best way that I could imagine it or put it. I have Councillor Riepma next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I think we certainly owe a debt of gratitude to the committee, because they certainly did a great deal of work. And I'm in general support of it. I think it's a package that comes together pretty well. And the reason I say that particularly is because we want to attract more younger, diverse people to this council. And I think that if there's a reasonable compensation package for them, then more people will be able to see their way clear to run for council. And I would not want sort of the funds to stand in the way. At the same time, we obviously have to keep an eye on the taxpayer and make sure that they are well served. I think that, yes, it's a part-time job. I wouldn't be surprised that many of my fellow colleagues spend 3/4 of their time on it. I'm sure that happens pretty regularly. With respect to the increase for the deputy mayor, Mr. Mayor, just judging from what the current deputy mayor does, that increase is well worth it. I think he's not making very much per hour in terms of the extra hours that he puts in. So I would be supportive of that. I think that covers my comments. I'm in support generally of the whole package.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Riepma. Next, I have Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. First would be a question to staff, and it's to do with the car allowance. Just because with the current format, with it being paid directly without any kilometers being submitted, obviously it's taxed. So depending on what one's tax rate would be, depends on how much they're losing, and some could be as high as 52%. I'm just kind of curious why it's that format opposed to submitting for the true kilometers, and then when you receive the funds that way, it's not taxed and potentially could actually save the city some money when it comes to those allowances.
Probably a question for Mr. DeWolf-Smith. Is the reason, other than simplicity, I suppose, that it's done this way rather than on a mileage recovery basis?
Through you, Mayor Lehman, to Councillor Harvey, I don't know the history as to why it was decided to be this way. I do know that other municipalities have transportation allowances, and oftentimes when the committee's looking at solutions or looking at changes, they look to what is kind of generally done in the industry. There is no reason why you couldn't change it to be a reimbursement model. Certainly we have the capacity, and that's what we do for staff. So,
Ms. McAlpine, I noticed you popped your camera on. I'm guessing you have something to say.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman, and Mr. DeWolf-Smith is correct. In the past, there have been historical comparisons to other municipalities, and most of them utilize an allowance versus a per kilometer reimbursement. One of the other challenges sometimes for the members is taking the time to complete the reimbursement. Sometimes people find that challenging to complete the reimbursement forms, and I think that's why you see in many municipalities it's an allowance versus tracking your mileage and then submitting it for reimbursement.
Councillor Harvey.
Great, thank you. Actually, I forgot to start off by thanking the committee because I think they've done a lot of work. The only piece that I saw prior to this report coming out was the extensive survey that they asked us to answer. But I do definitely thank them for their work. I really don't have an issue with the moderate increases to the council and mayor because it does align with less than 2% by the looks of it without doing quick math. I struggle a little bit with a 50% increase to the deputy mayor's piece of it, although I know our current deputy mayor is very active. The other thing a lot of discussion was around was OMERS. So there's one statement on the bottom of section 32 that says, like, for councillors, it would be an opt-in or opt-out for everybody. I read that as everybody would either be in or everybody would either be out. So that's actually inaccurate because I too am a current OMERS member, and you cannot have two sources of OMERS contributions. So someone like myself, that would not be a true statement. Just so that way it's clear that that's not necessarily the case for everybody. I do struggle with the OMERS for the councillors. And that's not to do with this opt-in, opt-out. The fact that it is a part-time job. And like, I mean, I know we're behind the times and it's been mentioned a few times that you're one of the few mayors in the big urban cities in this province that don't get OMERS. So I'm definitely in favor of our future mayors moving forward with OMERS. And also too, when you think about the dollar amount, so they recently changed the rules to OMERS, and it's not a guaranteed 2% per year. It's based on the health of the plan. But even if you were to keep it at the 2%, if things do work out great for the future, that literally amounts to a pension of $3,200 for the councillor for each 4-year term, providing the salary doesn't dramatically go up. So we're not talking about a lot of money, and it's not a pension that they would be able to collect right off the bat. They would have to wait until they hit the appropriate NRA age. So I just don't think that this OMERS pension is quite the attractive piece that some seem to think it is, because when you look at it and dissect it, it's such a small amount, and the member is having to pay $3,800 per year out of a $40,000 salary, which is a substantive percentage, and obviously that's matched by the city. But when you look at what the outcome is at the end, and you have to wait till you hit the NRA, which I'm suspecting is either 60 or 65 in this situation, because it depends on what the occupation is. as to what the NRA is, but I'm just not seeing that it's quite the attraction that that some seem to think it is, and I'm really reluctant to support that piece. But definitely, I think moving forward, we need to have that for our mayors.
Thanks for your comments, Councillor Harvey. Are there other comments on this matter? Councillor Kungle.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Lehman, I'll be brief. I guess one comment is, however OMERS proceeds around a decision, if it does get approved, I think that would be an important thing to be included in the nominations packages, so people are clear about what actually might be required for payment depending on their personal situation with OMERS, and to clarify the opting in or opting out option, and how that applies maybe to individuals, as Councillor Harvey spoke to it. My other question for staff was just a point of clarification, and maybe I misheard this, but when I was reviewing some of the committee meeting conversations, and because we haven't been doing a lot of mileage, my understanding was that when you actually get reimbursed for mileage, it's only for mileage outside of the city of Barrie. And I didn't want us to get confused about when we're doing meetings and maybe when we're all back to a busy schedule of in-person, that's a standard policy, and I'm assuming that policy wouldn't be changing.
Ms. Cook.
And through you, Mayor Lehman, to Councillor Kungle. No, that wouldn't be changing. So you would be able to get reimbursement for mileage that you get outside, that you use outside of Barrie. It would be technically the car allowance would cover any mileage or transportation within the city limits. And I just want to clarify with the opt-in and opt-out, I think Councillor Harvey's situation is a unique situation, and he is a unique individual. So, but I think he would, I think that would be a unique situation that we would have to look at next term if Councillor Harvey is elected, if this recommendation goes through, that council moves forward with the OMERS.
Thank you. No more questions on my end.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Kungle. Maybe I'll just make a couple of comments and then I'll take any amendments. I mean, because of my announcement last week, I feel kind of uniquely qualified to comment on some of this stuff now without fear of it being seen as self-serving. I do agree with the committee recommendations, and I think it won't surprise any members of council that generally I think that when we appoint a citizen committee independent of council to make recommendations, to me the bar is always a little higher for us to start fiddling with them, especially when the issue at hand is our own compensation, and that is why we make it an independent committee. So I'm not saying we can't. If there's a piece that is problematic, certainly councils of the past have done lots of different things in terms of approving or not approving recommendations, but my own view is there should be a very significant reason why we would turn down the independent advice in favor of our own views. On the actual recommendations, I will tell you that a number of members have raised the only one that I kind of wondered about, which was around the OMERS pension program itself. I don't really have issue with any of the other matters. The increases to the rate of compensation, I think, as Councillor Harvey has indicated, are very modest, and that is following an extensive review. And I do think, and to be frank, I know it's a big in percentage terms, but to go from $5,000 to $7,500 is not big in dollar terms. So notwithstanding, I know if you were to compare all those percentages, that increase to the deputy mayor's honorarium jumps out. The $2,500 extra spread over 12 months of work is an additional $200 a month for the time they are spending, and I dare say that they're spending it well, I would expect, and we'll spend more of it as the city grows. So I am in agreement with all of them. The only one that I struggled with, I will say, was the OMERS pension program being extended to councillors, and it is again no sort of hit on the amount of work that a councillor does, but rather parity with our own staff. And the question I did have for Mr. DeWolf-Smith is whether part-time staff at the city of Barrie are currently able to enroll in OMERS or not.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. Currently, OMERS does offer the ability for what's called other than continuous full-time staff to enroll in OMERS if they meet a certain threshold. That threshold is being eliminated for 2023. So into the future, yeah, so there'll be implications for the city with that. So yeah, there is the ability for non-full-time staff to belong to the pension plan.
So that threshold, so that is actually news to me, and my apologies, I may have missed that key piece for my own view. So as of 2023, there is no threshold that's required that any part-time staff could, and do they have the ability to opt in individually?
Correct, they can still opt in or out.
Okay. Okay, so, and maybe we could just get clarity as to that paragraph 32, because I take Councillor Harvey's point, and my apologies, members of council, I may have misspoken earlier. It does clearly say in the staff report that members of council would have the option to enroll in the benefits piece, but the pension piece, according to paragraph 32, is everyone or nobody, perhaps except for our unique individual on council. So, Mr. DeWolf-Smith, though, I was surprised by that because it's my understanding that OMERS was sort of always an opt-in. Is there a reason why council would need to be enrolled as a group?
The reason.
Oh, there we go.
Sorry,
Lost your audio for a second. Go ahead.
I'm not sure the reason. We sent them a inquiry to OMERS on that in terms of if there was a motion passed that council elected members would join the plan, if it would have to be an all-in or all-out situation, and their response was that it would be an all-in as a group. And again, I'm not sure what informs that, but I can try and find out more details around that if that would be helpful. That
would be helpful, I think, just for next week. It does seem to be an item that is at issue here tonight. So I'll leave my comments there. Members of General Committee, my suggestion would be if there is a particular paragraph, a recommendation that you either wish to vote on separately or amend, now would be a good time to proceed with those amendments or request that the matter be separated out. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. My amendment would be on 2C to remove the words and members of council when it comes to the OMERS pension program. So that way it would just be the mayor.
On the amendment, discussion, further discussion? Councillor Harris, Natalie Harris.
Thank you. Is there any way, even though I'm in favor of it, but I guess my question as well, now that I thought I'm misunderstanding, I thought the opt-in, opt-out was for everybody as an option for everything. So with respect to now, we see some people would like to go into that and some people wouldn't. So I'm assuming in the future council, we'd probably have the same kind of questions. And we don't have the full answers according to Brian with respect to that. Can we pull that out and move it to another meeting and vote on the rest? Because I would like to hear the answer from OMERS, and I guess we're still waiting for that. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, I guess procedurally, Councillor Harris, probably the best thing to do would actually be to leave it in and then take it out next week based on the answer if we don't like the answer. Right. I'm surprised by that too. I admit when I was going through the staff report, I missed that it doesn't apply to the pension piece because it does for everybody else in the organization. I'm a little surprised. Anyway, so that might be procedurally the way to pursue it. Councillor Harvey, I know it's your amendment.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Lehman. Considering your comments and Councillor Harris's comments, I do agree. Maybe let's wait till next week and get some more firm answers, so that way maybe we can make a better decision. I'll remove my amendment from the table.
Okay, thanks for that. We can certainly do it at council next week. Councillor Kungle.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Lehman. So I guess I would say I'm not sure if it's worth it, although we'll get more information next week. But I did see the merits about maybe dividing up 2C into two separate motions so that it would read the mayor be enrolled in the OMERS pension program, and then a new D would be members of council be enrolled in the OMERS program, and we just separate that out because it seems like it's two different conversations about how we feel about the mayoral position and then how we feel about members of council being seen as a different group. And
Yeah,
that's
well, be another way to handle it. I mean, I think if the issue is there's a desire by some to not give that piece to members of council, we would just amend that existing line and remove it. If there's a further desire to then take the mayor out, there could be a second amendment after that next week, or that could be introduced now if somebody wants to proceed with that, although I didn't really hear that around the table.
Okay, I'll leave it. I just thought I'd mention it in case it made things cleaner for next week.
Okay. Further comments? It is on the floor at the moment. Councillor Morales? On the floor is printed at the moment anyway.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. Again, with permission from somebody who's messaging me, it's actually one of the members of the committees. They are informing me that they're watching the debate, so I'm glad for them to also be engaged even after the report. They're saying that they're trying to bring Barrie up to the average on a lot of things. And let me read here, that Barrie right now is way below average on 31 points as compared to comparator cities in terms of the reports that they reviewed. So this person is watching a lot of the discussion specifically regarding the OMERS things, and 31 points in total for all categories are something that they said they wanted to bring Barrie up to. And I quote, OMERS Barrie is very behind the 8 ball. A lot of cities have it in place. And this person also said that the car allowance hasn't been increased since 2006. That said, I could be supportive if somebody wanted to. Again, it's about $50. So let's just like actually go to the number, not a percent. It's about $50. You know, I like a good gas guzzler, but if it comes down to that, let's keep it at current pace, because we're doing a lot of stuff on Zoom, right? So I know when members of council, some of you members go to Utopia for Nottawasaga Conservation Authority, etc. A lot of stuff happens on Zoom. So if personally speaking, Mayor, if there's something that I could be supportive of nixing from the committee, it would be that. But I just wanted to provide context, and we'll have lots of opportunities for members to confirm what I've said and contact the members of committee if they choose to for clarification that there was 31 points that Barrie was below average on compared to comparable municipalities.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor Morales. At the moment, the item continues to be as printed on the floor for the moment. Are there any amendments that anyone wishes to propose at this point? We certainly have at least one matter that we need to get the response from staff on. Okay, if there are no proposed amendments, then I'll call the question on the matter that's on the floor as printed. Those in favor of the item, please indicate. I am as well, and that makes a unanimous vote. Thanks, members of council. Good discussion. We will now move to the next item that was held, which was the staff report regarding the investigation to construct professional grade pickleball courts. Councillor McCann, you have that.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. And I do like to put it on the floor as printed, and I do have an amendment.
Go ahead.
That staff report DEV 002-22 concerning the investigation to construct professional grade pickleball courts. We referred back to staff in development services to report on the ability to develop 8, 12, and 14 new pickleball courts at Painswick Park, including available procurement options at the next general committee meeting on March 21st, 2022.
We have an amendment moved by Councillor McCann. It is a referral motion, so it is not debatable. It is to send the staff report back to staff in development services to report on the ability to develop 8, 12, and 14 new pickleball courts at Painswick Park, including available procurement options. And it would come back to general committee on March 21st in 3 weeks' time. So it's a referral motion. It's not debatable. Any questions of procedure around that item? Okay, seeing none, call the question. Those in favor of the referral motion? Opposed? 1. Okay, that carries. So that will be back to general committee with some additional information on the 21st of March. Okay, I know it's always anticlimactic when we have a referral motion, but rest assured, we will discuss pickleball just 3 weeks from now. All right, the next item that was held was a parking motion for Pepin Court. It was held by the ward councillor. Councillor McCann, go ahead.
Thank you, Mary Lynn. I'm just trying to pull it up here, but without seeing it, I'd like to keep the existing
think we all just got muted there. Try and unmute yourself. There you go. Go ahead, Councillor McCann. I
Sorry
did too.
about that.
I don't think he likes me. It wasn't you, man. It was me. Go ahead.
Come on, Mayor. So basically, I am looking to keep what staff have recommended, but add recommendation 2 by removing the sidewalk.
Okay, I'm just looking at it myself. So just give us your amendment again, Councillor McCann. Sorry.
So it is, so I'm trying to find it too. It's to keep the existing staff recommendation, but to add alternative number 2. And that alternative 2 simply is to remove the sidewalk.
Okay, and I need to pull up my own staff report. Copy of the staff report here.
Just on page 3, Mayor Lehman.
All right, thanks for that. Go ahead, Councillor McCann. Go ahead and speak.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've had lots of residents. It's a nice little cul-de-sac in Ward 10. And because of some of these surrounding properties, there's a lot of residents walking in Pepin Court's backyards. It's a distraction. They feel unsafe. So they've asked to have no parking. Staff have done an investigation. And they also would like to remove the sidewalks. Staff are not recommending removing the sidewalks. I think because staff never recommend moving sidewalks. But as the staff report states that the residents are in favor. And, you know, fiscally, it's going to cost $35,000 to remove the sidewalks, but it's actually going to save the city $350,000 annually. So it's a small group of people. It's a nice hidden.
Point of clarity, Mayor Lehman.
Yeah.
The report, is that 350 or 350?
It's 350.
What did I say? $1,000. That's right.
Yeah.
I say thousands. Sorry.
So, go
Sorry,
ahead,
I thought
Councillor McCann.
I read it wrong. I apologize.
No, it's 350.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Councillor.
That's it.
Okay, so it's on the floor, and then the amendment is to add alternative 2, removing the sidewalk. Deputy Mayor Ward on the amendment.
No surprise, I can support the first part of the motion. I could definitely not support pulling up a sidewalk. We just do not remove sidewalks in the city of Barrie. It would establish a terrible precedent. We've had people request sidewalks be removed in the past because they want to be able to park 2 cars in their driveway rather than 1 or whatever. The sidewalk does not belong to the residents that live next to it. I guess I might be convinced if they were all willing to put in $10,000 or $5,000 each to remove the sidewalk, but even then I wouldn't support it. I mean, they're asking, it's ridiculous to remove sidewalks in the city of Barrie, even on a short court. We need more sidewalks in the city of Barrie. I definitely cannot support removing the sidewalk. If he wants to introduce, if that's defeated, then introduce a motion just to change the parking, I'm in favor, but I would not support removing the sidewalk.
Okay, just to be clear, I had understood that the main motion was on the floor, and then this is an amendment to remove the sidewalk. So we're just on the question of whether or not to remove the sidewalk.
Oh, okay. I thought there was something else about the parking. So it was just to remove the sidewalk. Okay, I'm definitely not in favor.
Was that correct, Councillor McCann? You were adding that? Yeah, okay. Other comments on the amendment? Councillor Harvey?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Lehman. I guess just a question to staff, I guess, just to clarify, because I've got the Google Maps image up here, and it's kind of a unique way the sidewalk appears to be on both sides, and it goes a lot further, but not all the way into the court on one side, and seems to only go in 2, 4, 5 houses on the south side of the court. Can staff confirm that that's still the situation that this court is in? Because it seems a little peculiar the way the sidewalks are here.
I'm not sure who on staff we can go to on this one, but Mr. Rania Sundran, yourself or member of your staff?
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. I will defer this question to Ms. Banfield.
Ms. Banfield.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the question. The best way to look at the sidewalk situation really is on page 5 of the staff report. which does show the aerial photo. And the portion that Councillor McCann is speaking about is the portion on what would be the south side of Pepin Court. So you see the sidewalk does extend on the north side to the cul-de-sac bulb, or almost to the cul-de-sac bulb. But it's the 5 houses on the south side that had asked staff, or Councillor McCann and staff, to investigate.
Okay, great, thanks. Yeah, actually, now that I've gone to that appendix, it is the same as what Google Maps is showing it. I will support this motion, and for this particular reason. I personally live on a court in the other corner of the south end in the southwest. We've got a few less houses because there's 14 houses on my court, whereas it looks like there's 20 or 21 here. And we don't have any sidewalks on either side ourselves. So I don't see that there's going to be a negative impact. And really, this court leads to nowhere. So anybody that would be using the current sidewalks realistically should be a resident, because when you get into the dead end of this, you've got nowhere to go. Or as Councillor McCann mentioned, people are starting to go through other people's backyards, which is very problematic because it looks like this backs onto a lot of green space. So if that is a problem, then I would definitely support this motion because we do have other courts, mine being one of them in the city, that is very similar to this and does not have any sidewalks.
Thanks, Councillor Harvey. I thought there might be a few more speakers now. Councillor Reepma, I saw you first, then Natalie Harris, then Morales.
I just had a question to Councillor McCann. Can you sort of reiterate why you want that piece of sidewalk removed?
Councillor McCann.
Well, yeah, thank you, Mayor Lehman. Quite frankly, it's because I had so many complaints from the 5 neighbors, especially because the sidewalk doesn't finish going there. They get people walking down the sidewalk and then cutting into their backyards and going into either the fields. They get a lot of transient walking here. I'm not sure why this is such a hub, but literally half or at least 1/3 of the residents have complained to me for the past 8 years about this. And so it came up in discussion. And if you look at the map clearly, like this looks out of place. So, I mean, I want it because I think it actually lowers the quality of livelihood for these 5 residents. And I don't think it makes a lot of sense. I'm not sure why it didn't continue.
Okay, I guess I don't see the difference between this sidewalk and the sidewalk on the other side of the street or the sidewalk on any other street. I'm not sure why this would be leading people into the backyards. Maybe you can explain that a little more.
Well, I can't give you any, sorry, Mayor Lehman, through you, Mayor Lehman. I can't give you an explanation why people are cutting through people's yards. All I can tell you is I've been getting complaints the past 8 years that people are cutting through people's backyards. If I can guess, I would say because they want to go somewhere and it's faster to cut through someone's yard. As you can see that the lots are large and there is green field, and there are different house types here. And for some reason, this court is targeted to have a lot of people on the street, not living there, and dispersing through the yards. As you can see clearly, there's lots of green space through both yards. I mean, it's not like your regular street where you have houses that are tightly together. There's lots of space to go through.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mayor, I don't see the sense in removing sidewalks. I mean, I think that's just not something we need to encourage people to walk and walk on sidewalks. So I don't think I can support this. It doesn't sound real to me.
Thanks, Councillor Reepma. Councillor Natalie Harris.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. Yeah, through you. I'm in favor with Deputy Mayor Ward that this is a difficult precedent to set, and $35,000 is a very big cost to that. Although, you know, this is a tough one because I really do like to vote in favor of what the ward councillor recommends, but I'm worried about the requests that will come forward after this. And I don't think having a sidewalk or not having a sidewalk is going to deter anyone from, I guess, still going through those yards. I think the no parking is a good idea. Then it would obviously prevent people from coming into the court at all, I guess, especially by car. But this is a dangerous precedent, so I can't say yes to that. Sorry.
Thanks, Councillor Harris. Councillor Morales.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. I see this a lot the way I see the compensation package recommendation. What do I mean by that? We're not doing it necessarily for the current. We might be doing it for the future, and that means the future residents of this court. I also looked at the map there in the staff report, and while that sidewalk visually makes it seem like it makes no sense, what it allows, both of them, by the way, it allows somebody maybe in a scooter, so it could be a senior or somebody with in an actual wheelchair, so young or old, anything, to get their mail in the morning, to go to the neighboring block a little bit safer, specifically in different weather conditions. So that does provide a little bit of use. You know, providing personal experiences. I grew up without a sidewalk in front of my house, but yet the block south had a sidewalk and the block north had a sidewalk. When I was lucky and when I had my condo in Ward 9 there, it was the other situation. I had a sidewalk on my side of Goodwin, but on the other side, there was no sidewalks. So we don't, again, I follow the notion that we don't remove sidewalks when we have them, even if they don't specifically make sense in the moment. Eventually, they become more of a complete infrastructure that links. So yeah, especially with you know, people trying to get the mail or maybe just go for a bit of a walk there. That said, if for any residents on Pepin Court watching, and I know, you know, I got to give it to Councillor McCann, you know, comments for 8 years, consistent frustration, I get it. Those are real. The frustration is real, and I do commend him at least for bringing it forward and doing that. And you know, I don't know if maybe city staff can look at catwalks or different form of solution to resolve the cutting through the yard situation.
Thanks, Councillor Morales. Any more comments on the amendment? Okay, Councillor Harvey and then Councillor Jim Harris.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Lehman. Maybe just a little, I don't know if staff are going to know the history behind this, but it just seems very peculiar the way these sidewalks are. Like the north side goes about 2/3 of the way into the court, and the south side only goes about a third of the way into the court, covering 5 houses. Like usually if we're going to put sidewalks on a street, it's going to go the length of the street. So just wondering if staff can kind of give us some justification as to why the sidewalks are in the fashion that they are, because I've panned around to other courts in this area and I'm not seeing anything similar to this.
Ms. Banfield.
Through you, Mayor Lehman, to Councillor Harvey. There isn't too strong of a history lesson I can really share with you, other than just suggesting that it's my understanding that this development or this court developed at different times, where some of the houses were built by different builders, and so it was really just a bit more of the history of the sidewalk being required when these lots were being developed, but not necessarily when some of the other ones were. So that's, I don't really have, as I said, a strong history, but that's my understanding, that the whole court was developed at different times, and that's why the sidewalk might not have extended as far as you're seeing on the north side.
Just a follow-up, Mayor Lehman. Yeah, just like, is there any policy around how these sidewalks are installed? Only because everywhere in my area, either there's no sidewalks or the sidewalk goes the length of the entire street. So I'm just wondering, like, is there any policy around this, or is this designed for differently on each application?
Through you, Mayor Lehman, to Councillor Harvey. city standards do change over time for sure. And I think potentially this is what this subdivision or this portion of the subdivision might have been caught between. Certainly the city standard that's in place now is to have sidewalks on both sides of the streets in as many cases as possible. So as I said, I do believe that this is a unique area where, as I said, a couple of the houses might have been developed at different times.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Harvey. Councillor Jim Harris.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Lehman. And apologies for belaboring this, but seeing this picture, it's really curious. I mean, I think we've all probably recognize this is a really curious street as far as its design on the sidewalk on both sides of the court, but neither one go the length of the court. There's more houses on the court that don't have a sidewalk in front of it. I believe 16 as opposed to 5 that do, or 7 that do, pardon me. It's just a really strange design, to say the least. I just wonder, maybe through you, Mayor Lehman, to Councillor McCann, I can see how you have had challenges with this court, with the residents. Was there any discussion, because the sidewalk on, I believe it's the north side where it covers 2 homes on the corner, was there any, not to cause more challenge, maybe I am, but any consideration to not have sidewalks in front of those 2, because they kind of come out kind of awkwardly too? Was that brought forward as an option as well?
Councillor McCann.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. Sorry, Councillor Harris, you're talking about the houses like right on Prince William Way in Pepin? Walk me through where you're at.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks for clarification. On the Appendix A,
yeah.
I can see on that, and if I'm getting my south and north wrong, I apologize. On the
so north,
5 houses, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the bottom side of the page, and you've got a sidewalk that ends at the one driveway. And on the other side, there's a sidewalk that goes down. I guess there's some townhouses that border, and then it goes down. It captures a sidewalk across 2 driveways on that side of the street as well, and it comes out, not quite in the round part of the court. So,
yeah,
has there been any discussion about them wanting that sidewalk removed, at least up until it passes that first house on that left side if you're entering into the court?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Lehman, I appreciate the question, Mr. Councillor Harris. And no, I've had no discussion in the past 7.5 years to have extra sidewalks.
No, sorry, have that removed as well. Sorry, pardon me, Councillor McCann.
Right, yeah, and actually, to tell you the truth, no, I haven't had anybody. There's lots of transit coming, people coming back and forth along that property, as you can see from the townhomes to that open area. There's a lot of people walking from that area, but no, I have had no one comment on the sidewalks on the north side. It's just the south side where the solar and the 2 pools are, along the shorter red line, if you want to call it.
Okay, great. So thank you, Councillor P. Yeah, I do understand the challenge, and we know we have courts in Barrie that don't have sidewalks. We have courts that have sidewalks on one side that serve. But this just does seem awkward. So I do understand the challenge that you're presented here with this design. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, folks, I know the design is unusual, but the sidewalks have already been built. So I do want to bring this to a vote. Councillor Natalie Harris, go ahead.
Sorry, really quickly, it's not about the design at all. I'm just looking at the map as well. And so just south from Pepin Court is an entrance into the green space. It is so bizarre how there's people walking through people's backyards to get into that green space. And $35,000 to rip up and, make noise, and for the whole neighborhood to get rid of the sidewalk in front of those 5 houses. It doesn't make sense. Maybe those 5 individuals should maybe purchase like some video cameras for safety. This maybe sounds like a safety issue anyways. And if there isn't a sidewalk and there's people that are walking through these people's yards, they're still going to walk through their yards. So that's just the way I see it. I think this is more of a safety concern that maybe they need to look into.
Thanks, Councillor Harris. Any other comments on the amendment? Councillor Congo.
I'll be brief in effort that maybe this is an outreach as well. So I will not support the removal of sidewalks. If anything, I would promote the completion of the street from an accessibility standpoint. But I would identify, to Councillor Harris's point. And happy to reach out to you, Councillor McCann. I had issues with trespassing. That was something that the community safety and wellbeing officer was able to meet with residents, and we actually came up with some pretty good solutions. So if that hasn't been identified with residents, knowing that there's concerns, I'm happy to connect you with Constable Brooks, but that would be something that might be helpful overall.
Thanks, Councillor Kungle. Any other comments on the amendment to remove the sidewalk? I'm not going to support it. While I recognize it is an unusual design, and I don't think it would probably have been done this way other times, or if it wasn't built 2 stages, or however it happened. $35,000 to rip up a sidewalk is the kind of thing that makes national news for all the wrong reasons. It is, to me, the height of fiscal irresponsibility to tear up a sidewalk, especially only in front of 5 homes. I can respect that perhaps there are concerns with individuals in the walking past, but there's no way in the world I would ever support $35,000 to tear out an existing sidewalk. So I'm going to vote against the amendment, and I'll call the question on the amendment. Those in favor of it, please indicate. Opposed to the amendment? Okay, the amendment is defeated. The main motion is with regards to the amendments to the parking restrictions. Any comments on the main motion as printed? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor of it? Any opposed? None. That carries. Okay, the next item that was held was the Water Operations Branch 2021 Drinking Water System Reports. Councillor Jim Harris, you held this item.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Lehman. And I just wanted to recognize, and I think this may have been a repeat from last year, but certainly of the thing I see, Councillor Ewan's nodding, but I just wanted to recognize of all the things that we see and oversee as a city council, we recognize that safe and consistent drinking water is very critical, and we know not everybody has that luxury. So I just wanted to make that recognition on behalf of, if I may, on behalf of council, to the staff who do the work to make sure we have good drinking water in Barrie. We've always been proud of our drinking water in Barrie. So I just wanted to make that note. And I did notice in the report, and I thank you to staff for always including the taking care of your drinking water, a quick guide for members of municipal councils. And it reminds us that it's our duty to make sure that we have safe drinking water, and that we need to be informed and be vigilant to make sure that our water is of good quality. So thank you for that friendly reminder. It's always important. But I also noticed the comment and the positive comment about the actual learning that happened during the tornado. And so that was a real life application of our emergency planning and the positive outcome. And again, kudos to staff for doing a great job of keeping the water available for residents during that time. But it mentioned that the incident debrief was held, and staff management provided feedback on the incident, discussed opportunities for improvement. And the debrief resulted in 3 actions for improvement. And I didn't notice those in the report, and it was a big report, so I could have missed it. So I just wondered if through you, Mayor Lehman, if Mr. Ranasendran would be able to maybe give some detail on those 3 opportunities for improvement that were gained through the tornado action review. So thank you for that.
Mr. Ranasendran.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman, and through you, Mayor Lehman, to Councillor Harris. He's quite right. There were 3 opportunities for improvement that were identified. All of the opportunities were in relation to emergency response plans during a tornado. The first opportunity was to review and improve the arrangement of the emergency reference documents that are used by water operations when initiating the incident management system. So that was the first one, and we've actually completed that improvement. The second opportunity was to determine a shelter in place at the surface water treatment plant. And what that is identify a location within the surface water treatment plant where staff could congregate in a safe manner during a tornado. And, prior to the tornado, we didn't have such a location. So we've updated the emergency response plan to reflect this shelter in place. And this shelter in place within the surface water treatment plant has been established, and we've updated the emergency response plan. The third improvement, again, it's related, was to communicate the updates to the emergency response plan with respect to the shelter in place to all the staff. And this third item will be completed once all the updates to the emergency response plans are finished. And so all three improvements are well underway, with a couple of them already complete. So I trust that answers your question, Councillor Harris, and I can provide more detail if needed.
No, that is great. Thank you very much. And at that point, it's cheers to the City of Barrie water staff. So thank you very much, and thanks for joining me.
Well done, Councillor Harris. Actually, and thanks for raising it and holding it. If it had gone on consent, here's what I wanted to say. We really do want to celebrate this. Our drinking water system received a perfect score of 100%. From the Ministry of the Environment. That is a very, very rare thing indeed. It's a testament to the diligence and hard work of the staff in the Water Services Department, and especially during a pandemic. So, notwithstanding the changes to the working environment, procedures, and all of the things that have gone on over the past 2 years, our staff managed to receive a perfect score this year on the inspection. So, our residents can feel some pride and, of course, comfort that our system is literally the best it could possibly be. And it is a testament to the water department staff. So, congratulations to the department. Are there other comments on this report? Okay, the motion's on the floor as printed. I will call the question. Those in favor, please indicate. Anybody opposed? None. That carries. Thank you again. Okay, the remaining item that was held was with regards to a community art project. It was held by Councillor Thompson. It was put on by Councillor Kungel. Go ahead, Councillor Thompson.
Thanks. Through you, Mayor Lehman. I'll put the motion on the floor as printed. First of all, I sit on the Barrie Public Art Committee, and I really appreciate the thoughtfulness of bringing this forward. Just unfortunately, right now, I don't know if time would permit. Just the Barrie Public Art Committee and Deputy Mayor Ward sitting on it will be able to tell. Like, we have public art projects in Ward 1 and 3, Brightening Barrie in 2020, which is a downtown patio project. We've just finished 3 education mural workshops that was filled. And it's really inspired a lot of people to take them back to where they live and start getting involved. So I don't know if that we would be able to embark on this at this time, but I don't know if I'm able to refer this back to the Barrie Art Committee for a discussion to see if it is something that we can. Is that, I know that it's a committee, but I just don't know if procedurally I can send it to the Barrie Art Committee, or would it have to go to City Building or Finance?
Well, I guess it would depend on your purpose, Councillor Thompson. I mean, the item as printed directs staff in Rec and Culture to collaborate with the committee and other departments to investigate the potential to do the project. So that would be the direction that council would approve if the item went forward. If you wanted to refer that for further discussion, or at least consultation with the Public Art Committee, I suppose you could refer it to the Public Art Committee, have them talk about it first, and then if it was approved there, I guess the question would be whether further direction would be required for that to then proceed. Madam Clerk, it's a little awkward, but I'm making this up as I go, as I have done for 12 years, just to be clear. Go ahead, Ms. Cook.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. And through you to Councillor Thompson. It said the item for discussion mentions to collaborate with them and investigate the potential to deliver an art project. So it doesn't direct an art project to be undertaken this summer. It's just the potential to undertake a program, an art project, and a report back to general committee. So it's not directing the art project to happen. It's just looking at the potential of it happening. So, and staff would,
sorry to the clerk. Miss Cook, and I'm sorry to interrupt. I do understand. It's just the collaboration with the Barrie Art. Like I had some email back and forth, Councillor Jim Harris and myself, as he sits on the McLaren with Carol Ann, a member of staff and stuff. It's just, I don't know if we have the resource even to collaborate with rec, and that's why I want to be careful that we don't pull them away and with staff report in time. And I do apologize for interrupting, but I would like to make sure, and what I was thinking, to the advice of Mayor Lehman, is I refer it to the Barrie Public Art, and then if it passed there, to then send it to building committee, and then back to general committee if it's something kind of in them steps. Just that way we don't get far down the rabbit hole of something that we have to pull away from a pretty busy schedule for the remaining of the term of the Barrie Art Committee.
If I could suggest, it sounds like this is an issue of workload for the Public Art Committee. Unless the 3 weeks, Councillor Congo would significantly deter the project, we could defer it by one meeting to allow consultation with the committee. I don't know, Councillor Congo or members of the committee, if you've, go ahead, Councillor Congo. Did you have a chance to chat with them about it?
I did, but I'm not sure if there's a confusion about what's being asked of the Arts Committee. So happy to defer it, because it might not even fall under what might be considered art or not, but it's not meant to add a workload, but it is something that came out of conversation about whether or not there's an objective that could be done with the culture days in the fall. Doesn't even have to land in this year. So perhaps that will give time to kind of take that away and have a conversation with rec staff and maybe a member of the Arts Committee to talk a bit about where this originated from and whether or not it would fall in or outside of an Arts Committee pressure.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Ward.
Yeah, the Arts Committee is actually meeting next Tuesday, a week from tomorrow, which is the day after this would be approved. I almost want to see it go ahead, so at least the Art Committee has a chance, the Public Art Committee has a chance to review it and give you an answer quickly. So I don't want to defer it, because I do want it to show up on that agenda maybe in 8 days, and then maybe they don't have time, and maybe Caroline Ryan, our staff member, doesn't have time to do it, but I think we can get the answer really quickly. So I don't want to see it deferred if that was one of the options. I'd rather see this go ahead and get an answer from the Art Committee and then bring it back. I'm not sure, Councillor Thompson, what do you think?
Yes, I think, like I said, I think it's a great idea. The more public art we can get and everybody excited about, I'm all on board. It's just, like I said, I was having some conversations with the Art Committee, and it was just a little bit concerned on the timing and stuff like that. But yeah, as we are meeting on the Tuesday, if we just let it go tonight, then there's a possibility that we can report back after our meeting. I'm okay with that. Either way, like I said, I just was a little bit late, the conversation that Councillor Kungla and Councillor Jim Harris and myself had, and we were just trying to find a way that this great idea doesn't get lost, but just to make sure that it can go.
Okay, what's your pleasure, members of General Committee?
So I will take the advice of Deputy Mayor Ward if he feels that it's better just to let it pass it like this and then report back after our meeting on the feasibility and the time. I'm totally okay with it that way.
Okay, so in that case, the items on the floor as printed, at least for tonight. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'll just say thanks for bringing it forward. It sounds like a cool project. I hope we're able to fit it in. And I'll call the question. Those in favor of the motion? Any opposed? None. That carries. Thanks for that. That completes the business of General Committee when it comes to staff reports and items for discussion. It brings us to the inquiries of staff. Deputy Mayor Ward, do you have any inquiries of staff?
I have none.
Members of general committee and inquiries of staff. Seeing none. Announcements. Deputy Mayor Ward, any announcements?
No announcements.
Councillor Natalie Harris, announcement.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. I'll just ask Ms. Cook to bring up a very adorable picture, please, before I share this announcement. Wonderful. Let me just go to my reading here. Please hold. I wasn't expecting us to get to announcements so quick. This is great. Okay. Oh my goodness, we've had a lot of things. So this is with permission posted. This is Memphis, and my friend Vanessa Valentine has allowed me to give some details around what Rare Disease Awareness Day is, which is today. So if you will indulge me, I will read a little paragraph or two from Memphis's mom and share why it's important to have this discussion and to also connect these families together. And that's why I'm having this discussion. So Rare Disease Day is observed every year on the 20th of February or the 29th. In leap years, the rarest day of the year. Rare Disease Day is an opportunity to advocate for rare diseases as a human rights priority at local, national, international levels as we work towards a more inclusive society. Memphis is a happy, energetic, funny, and empathetic little girl. To me, from day one, she has been a mystery and a miracle. She is my 6 out of 7 children, and I knew from when she was in utero she was different. Mother's instinct was right because the minute she was born, I knew she was different. I don't like using the word wrong. I never felt there was anything wrong with her. She was perfect to me. It blows my mind that people will ask me, what's wrong with her? However, I did worry. She was floppy, unresponsive, wouldn't eat. She spent 6 weeks in the NICU at RVH. Test after test came up blank. I would see other moms at the park and they would ask, oh, how old is your baby? I dreaded saying, oh, she's way older than yours. She was just 12 pounds on her first birthday. Still in an infant car seat size, looking like she was 3 months old. And feeding her for the first few years was a nightmare. She couldn't swallow, and she was definitely having a failure to thrive. She never cried for food once or woke up in the night for food until about 6 months old. Even her little cry was weak. She was like having a toy doll. Can you imagine having a baby that didn't have hunger cues? It's the strangest thing. I would put her in her crib and leave. Her eyes didn't follow me. I thought she was blind for the first year. She never smiled, sat, or laughed, or held her head until much later than she should have. We started genetic testing at Sick Kids when she was a baby. They also came up blank. We said they could keep her DNA on file for future studies in case something came up in the future. I accepted the fact that Memphis was Memphis, and as long as she is healthy and happy, I don't care what she is. On February 25th this year, Memphis turned 8 years old. As I was getting ready for school, I got a call from Sick Kids saying that they're pretty certain that they have found a diagnosis for Memphis. So this is just the other day. I couldn't believe it. I was in shock and cried on and off all day. Having a diagnosis will mean so much. Support from other parents whose child has this, better support from the school, physio and speech, I hope, and hopefully some funding from hospital visits and special devices. I'm grateful for the city to acknowledge Rare Disease Day. It means a lot to us. We will be celebrating her differences extra today. Next year, I hope that we can plan earlier and get more awareness and inclusiveness into the classroom. Memphis's full name is Memphis Winter Nasiah, which means winter miracle. She really is my miracle baby. I wouldn't change a thing about her. I'm so lucky to have her. Thank you for letting me share that.
Thanks, Councillor Harris. Thanks for sharing and for bringing a picture of Memphis for that announcement as well. Appreciate that. Any other announcements, members of General Committee? Okay, Councillor McCann, go ahead.
So I've got a little fun project happening this Saturday at 4 o'clock at Meridian Square. I'm teaming up with our town choir, Steve Travers. And he wrote me a little blurb that I couldn't write, so I'll read what he wrote. The tour is Victorian Barrie Heroes, Heroines, Rogues, and Scoundrels. A look back at Pioneer Barrie and the buildings they used when our community was populated with farmers, loggers, railwaymen, and criminals. I take you 2 blocks in just 1 hour, and we'll look at Simcoe County Jail, and I'll tell you all the baddies who were hung there and what for too. and as well as stories as the goodies who made our little town into the city it is now. I had the privilege of having Steve Travers, our town crier, at a Rotary event, and I was absolutely blown away at the quality of public speaking, the quality of engagement, and quite frankly, the quality of entertainment that this man possesses. So I said to him, I had an ice sculpture that I purchased, and he came down and did a send off. And I asked him if he would do a tour and invite as many people as possible, and he was all over it. I've also asked the Queen's Hotel if they would like to get involved. So the tours actually usually ends at the Barrie Jail. In fact, it's going to end at the Queen's Hotel for a family event. The Queen's is going to supply some food, and Steve is actually going to talk about the history of the Queen's Hotel. So it's going to be a one-of-a-kind tour. Everyone's invited. And for those that are looking at your phone right now to see what it's cost, it actually is going to cost you nothing. It's free, and we're promoting it. And it's just, March. Everyone's allowed back out. It's just a good old time to figure out how Barrie was made, and love to see you down there. And that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McCann. Any other announcements? Okay, seeing none, I do have a number as always. March 1st, registration will be open for the spring and summer rec programs and day camps. So that's March 1st, we will be opening registration for summer day camps. I know a lot of people wait for the moment that opens up to get their kids into our camp programs. It is ages 5 to 12. And for many of our youth at rec centers and parks throughout the city and at the sports complex, those camps. For more information and to register, it's play.barrie.ca. We are also still looking for camp leaders, lifeguards, program instructors, and more. It is that time when we're hiring for some of those positions. Applicants must be currently enrolled in or a student in secondary school, high school, college, or university. Apply today, barrie.ca/recjobs. This is very important. The Barrie Stands with Ukraine event will be happening Thursday at 6:30 p.m. at Meridian Place. This has been sent to me by former MP Nuttall. It is being hosted by Holy Cross Ukrainian Catholic Church and will include a vigil for those who have been lost and prayers for an end to the invasion of Ukraine by the Russian regime and President Putin. Ukrainian Canadian MP James Bezin will also be in attendance, as will myself. That is Meridian Place, Thursday at 6:30 for the Stand with Ukraine event. But beginning February 25th until March 20th, 5 selected project-based art installations will be on display in downtown Barrie as part of Hello Winter. Downtown Barrie is also hosting Chimes, an interactive art display that fills Meridian Place with a symphony of sound and light, resulting from the movement of the chimes. To view the full Hello Winter schedule, visit barrie.ca/hellowinter. We are also inviting proposals from local and regionally based artists or artist teams for artistic installations that will serve as a downtown patio enhancement, as mentioned by Councillor Thompson earlier. Professional artists from Barrie and the County of Simcoe are invited to submit their proposals by March 9th. You can view details at barrie.ca/publicart. A reminder, as winter progresses and curb collections become difficult to place bins out of the path of snow removal equipment, ensure they remain visible to collectors. Please don't put them on top of your snowbanks. That presents an unsafe and awkward situation for our collectors. Snow Angels Canada is available to help those of you who may be struggling to deal with snow in the end of your driveway. You can post a request for service, of course, and volunteers in the area, or reach out for help. It is snowangelscanada.ca if you need help with snow in your driveway. On-street overnight parking restrictions are now in effect until March 31st, 2022. During this time, parking is not permitted on city streets from midnight until 7 a.m., as I think we all know by now. That brings us to the circulation lists. Comments on the circulation lists. First, from February 14th. Any items? Councillor Riepma.
Yes, thank you. C3 on that circulation list is a motion by some municipality, and it concerns the liability insurance. And I think we had an increase in our insurance bill of about 600,000, I think, if my memory serves me right. And this motion is directed to the province because they can change the law with respect to severability, and that would help, I think, not only us but every municipality in Ontario. So I'm wondering if we can refer that item to our legal department for a report back to Finance and Corporate Services Committee.
So that would be C3 to legal for report to corporate services. Yes. Any comments? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor of referring that item for a report? Okay, that's unanimous. Thanks, Councillor Rietman. Any other items from the February 14th circulation list? Councillor Kungl.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lehman, just a question to staff regarding section C. C6, C4, the private tree removal bylaw. And through you to staff, I have some questions coming in, and while I want to thank staff too for organizing the public consultation, and I'm aware that there's still a survey out for feedback, a piece that has kind of come out and residents are asking if it would be even in scope, so they know whether or not to direct feedback to this process, is the removal of dead trees. So is there anything that's out of scope around the private tree bylaw, and can residents actually make recommendations about managing with property standards on dead trees that are doing damage to neighboring properties to enforce the removal of a dead tree on a private yard? So I didn't know if anything tied to enforcement services around tree removal and damage comes into play with this bylaw.
And my apologies to staff, but I'm not sure which member of staff might be able to answer Councillor Kungl's question on that. Ms. Cook?
It would not be anything with enforcement services, so I would pass it on to Mr. Anurasundam.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Mr. Anurasundam.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman, and through you to Councillor Kungl. I think that would be part of the scope of the review of the tree bylaw, and we can definitely take that into account as we progress with that initiative.
Great, thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Kungl. Anything else on the circulation list from the 14th? Okay, seeing none, how about the 17th? No items from February 17th. Oh, yep, go ahead, Councillor Kungl.
And my apologies, and I'll be quick. So on the 17th, we did have the SIP report back on the July and October intake period. And I was wanting to ask staff, so through you to Ms. Banfield, I believe, I was seeing in the report back that we still had $144,000 in the redevelopment category, but the affordable housing category had been fully used, which is great to see. Is there a part of the process with the community improvement program funding where we might actually look at utilizing the dollars that were not spent in 2021 to actually support more affordable housing development? Or would we leave it in the, I believe it's the redevelopment for other initiatives?
Through you, Mayor Lehman, to Councillor Kungl. So just a couple of things. So the money, if it's not used in 2021, will carry over to the 2022 portion. That first intake is open now for the 2022 until the end of April. The last time staff reported to council was back in September, and we did do a bit of a redistribution to increase the the amount to affordable housing and decrease it a little bit from the redevelopment grant. Council can do that again should they wish to, or they'd be able to do it when we get we'll do a report back after the first round of grants, and so we could see what happens in the first round of 2022, and then we can include some direction or some suggestion about kind of where things stand, and council could look at reallocating at that time, if that helps.
That's helpful too. And maybe it's for broader conversation, knowing that we're in an election year. Are there things coming up where we might want to be considering redirecting dollars in a window that we have a door closed? And maybe that's for the clerk, but I didn't know if this was a situation, rather than waiting for the report, if there's anything before a late spring report where we would want to be looking at an opportunity to then reallocate dollars that might be existing to different strategies.
So I'll just go to Mr. Miller. The year-end report, I suppose, might be the opportunity to do that, but perhaps Mr. Miller, you could comment on what reports might be coming forward that would give council an opportunity to consider the broader financial picture around the CIPs.
We could update in the year-end report. We generally don't touch on the CIP reserve, but we could include some commentary in there as to what's been allocated up to this point in the year. But if you did want to allocate funds outside of the CIP for other purposes, I would suggest the year-end report would be the probably most informed information you'll have on where we stand on our results and reserve balances. So that should be coming forward in early April.
Okay, thank you. I think that's fine from a timeline, unless others are interested in moving that, because I just want to be mindful, and I probably don't fully appreciate when the window might be that council might not be able to make certain decisions through a municipal election.
Right. So the lame duck period, Madam Clerk.
Through you, Mayor Lehman, to Councillor Kungl, the lame duck period would start on nomination, the final day of nominations, which is August 19th.
That's great. Thank you very much.
And there's a whole formula, but it would be August 19th.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Kungl. Any other items from either the 17th or the 28th, February 28th agenda? Sorry, circulation list. Okay, seeing none, that completes the business of General Committee. We will be here tomorrow night is Finance and Corporate Services Committee at 6 o'clock. City Council will be next Monday at 7. Thank you all very much. General Committee is adjourned. Good night.